Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times to discuss books and horror. And today I am here to let you know everything that I read in the month of January.
It's coffee time!
So 2024 has been for me a great start into the reading year. I feel like I have read a lot of things that I have thoroughly enjoyed. There is nothing in today's list that it is like a low rating, so I think that already speaks for itself. Also, the other day I was talking to Naikia and she asked me how it was after I merged my channels, and I remember telling her that it has allowed me to have a lot more time to read, and I have been able to read so much more and dedicate so much more time to reading and to content in January, and it has been a blessing. So I would like also to thank you all guys for supporting me merging my channels and for showing me a lot of love and support. Also thank you to everybody that has already joined my Patreon. Hopefully we can build up that family so that we have big reading sprints together and exclusive readathons and reading books together in the book club. Like, I'm really excited about that in 2024. So thanks everybody for all your support. And today I'm here to talk to you about the things that I read in the month of January. So I read a total of 9 books, and that doesn't count the books that I have been reading in the background for like themed vlogs and stuff like that. So outside of those, I have read 9 books, which is a really good month for me. If you're new to the channel, we are going to be rating our books with coffee mugs, and I will start with the lowest rating so that we always end up on a positive note. Let's start with a book that is completely outside of my comfort zone, and that is A Fragile Enchantment by Alison Saft. So I read this one because this was given to me by the publisher. It is an ARC, and it is a book that just came out in January 2024, so I wanted to make the effort to read it, and also because I wanted to try to read different genres this year if I can, maybe just one per month, because obviously I love my horror and I want to keep reading horror, but this was such an interesting read for me. It is romance fantasy, but it is a fantasy that is not, it doesn't have like a really big world building where there is many words that need to be explained, and it was really easy to follow. We follow a girl called Niam that has a very special talent. So in this world, people have different magical talents, and her talent is that she can create garments, you know, clothes, and when she is sewing them together, she can add feelings and she can add like expression to it, so the person that is wearing them can channel that emotion or can create or kind of like project a certain feeling to the people that are watching them. And I thought that was so interesting. It was such an interesting concept, and there is so many things that you can do with that. For example, there is something that she creates, like a jacket that makes the person that wears it almost invisible to the people around them. So it could be something that someone that is very shy and that wants to be unnoticed could wear. So I thought that was such a like a cool, interesting concept. And there was some romance, but it's a very slow burn romance, but it was very cute. It felt almost like Bridgerton in a way, which I really enjoy. Bridgerton, if you guys didn't know, I really enjoy the TV show. I have never read the books, but I love the TV show, so it kind of gave me that feeling. You know, you have royalty, and then you have people that come from other communities that are more in poverty, that have been more affected due to wars and things like that. This book is more focused on the characters, their friendships, their rivalries, the romance, and all the different kind of like royalty problems and the wars, more than a really high fantasy world building. I think I have learned that for myself, if there is like a huge world building in fantasy, it might not be for me. So this one worked really well, and it was really easy to read, and I really enjoyed it because it had been so long since I read a book like this. Normally if I read romance, it's your typical rom-com, but I have not read like a fantasy romance in years. So I think that's also why I enjoyed it so much. Echoes of Home by M.L. Rayner, and this was the perfect atmospheric gothic ghost story. It was also perfect to read during winter. It was the indie book pick from Sharon's book club, and I think she did a really good job picking this one for January because it felt very much like winter. There was a lot of snow and talk about the cold in the book, and that added a lot to the atmosphere. A man inherits a house and he decides to move there without asking many questions or even investigating anything at all about this place, and he ends up moving to this very isolated house that is close to a teeny tiny town full of secrets. When he moves to the new place, he starts hearing things. He almost believes that he's seeing things that may or may not be there. So he starts to question his own sanity. Is he truly losing his mind, or is the place haunted? And one of my favorite things about this book is that it truly felt like your classic gothic story, but at the same time it brought a couple of new interesting elements to it. The story is connecting the past with the present, and the main character is going to learn a lot about the background of the house, the town, and the people that used to live there. And for me, I think the flashbacks to the past were my favorite thing in the book. I think this book is going to be perfect for people that love a classic gothic ghost story. One Must Go by Alex Reed. This is a book that was published this January as well, so it is a new release, and this is going to be perfect for people that are looking for an adult horror book that takes place during Halloween. So you're gonna see this one on my Halloween recommendations for this year for sure. Every Halloween, 3 children are chosen to make an impossible decision. One of them has to be sacrificed. So every Halloween night there is this entity that visits the town and selects 3 children. Is it random? Are they chosen for a specific reason? We don't know, but 3 kids are chosen, and they are presented with the question, who will be sacrificed? From the 3 of them, 1 has to be sacrificed. If they can decide which of the 3 will be the sacrifice, the other 2 can go home like nothing happened. This mysterious entity, this mysterious man, tells them they have until sunrise to make a decision. Otherwise, there will be consequences. So imagine the kids being presented with this choice, and they are around 11 years old. This is a very fast-paced and entertaining story that takes place throughout the Halloween night, so it all takes place in just one night, and we see the kids struggling to make the decision. The kids also have their own backgrounds, their own stories, and you're gonna get to know them a little bit better also in order to understand the decisions that they are making. And they are also kids that are problematic in their own way, so for you as the reader, you kind of don't feel as bad, I guess, for some of the characters because they are not truly likable. They are very unique, all 3 of the kids, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses that will influence what happens at the end of the night. A lot of things happened in the book, and it is definitely action-packed. The horror from the book comes like in its majority due to this mysterious man that asks them to choose a kid to be sacrificed. So it is kind of like the fear for the unknown, and they're running out of time because they have to make the decision before sunrise, but there's also some blood and some guts in the book, which is going to please horror readers in general that love their books a little bit more bloody. The Doomsday Archives, The Wandering Hour, and this is the first book in a new middle grade horror series, and also was published during the month of January, so this is another new release that I read. This was a great creepy middle grade story full of magic as well. So we follow Emery's, and he knows that there is something going on, something sketchy is going on in the town of New Rotterdam. So together with his friends, they are going to try and investigate a lot of the local legends in order to try to prove if they are real or not. The book has some mixed media, and we get to see entries in a Wikipedia that is compiling the myths and legends from the town and speaks about things that have been seen in the town, where this creature was spotted and stuff like that. And I thought that was just so much fun, and the kids are using this Wikipedia in order to debunk or prove that these legends exist, as well as to understand a lot more about the town's past. In New Rotterdam, people go missing all the time, and apparently the adults are not doing anything about it. So of course the kids are the ones here in the book that are trying to take a look at what's going on in this town before more people go missing. Now the parents are present in the book. They even like help them, driving them around and encourage them and all of that. They are not super present, but they're there. I truly love to read from the kids' perspective. I thought it was a lot of fun because the kids loved horror and horror movies, and I love so much the fact that they mentioned that actually horror movies are less scary than the real world. The kids also were refreshing in the sense that they were analyzing the situations and they were trying to figure out what to do next instead of making just dumb decisions that we see kids or teenagers in books do. Sometimes they just act without thinking too much. So I love to see that these kids are putting some thought into their next steps, to see what makes more sense to do next. I think it has a lot of potential because obviously the kids can investigate a lot of different like myths and legends from this town, and because the horror also has a lot of magical elements, it opens up the possibilities. And I thought this was such a good solid first book in the series, so I do hope that they continue. Next we have You Wouldn't Catch Me Dead by Tess James Mackey, and I read her first book, her debut novel, and I really enjoyed it, and I was really excited to pick up her next book. And I am glad to report that this one was a lot darker and a lot more bloody and messed up than the first one was. Keely is not really excited to make friends. That's not what she wants to do. She just wants to finish school and apply for college, but she knows that she needs some kind of extracurricular stuff in order to get accepted into college. So she decides to join a club at school, and it is a club that kind of helps you survive in the big outdoors and takes you camping, and it's not like she's really excited about it, but she has to do it. So this club is gonna go to camp out in the wilderness, and everybody's really excited. She's not, and she's soon going to regret the decision of joining this club. So the kids, together with two teachers, arrive to the place where they are supposed to set camp. And because they arrive a little bit early, they decide to go on a hike. Unfortunately, during that hike, somebody gets hurt. And it is kind of like the turning point. From that moment on, things are just gonna get worse and worse. They are incommunicated, they have no way of reaching out for help, they don't have much food, they don't know how to get back home. They are basically stranded in the middle of this wilderness. At least they were able to set up the camping tents so they can seek some refuge there during the night. However, it's very rainy, the water is getting into the tents, and on top of that, there are some weird noises during the night, some weird shadows, and we don't know if it's people that are messing with them, if it's a monster, a creature, an animal, What is it? Something supernatural? So we don't know, but something is threatening these kids. I really enjoyed this book and the isolated kind of survival horror setting, and the kids are left there by themselves, isolated, and even though you have to wait almost to the last third of the book, because that's where the majority of the action in the horror takes place, I really enjoyed the kind of slow build up to that. Keely, our main character, also has a story from her past that we are going to discover bit by bit. They are kind of flashbacks to her past. So those are chapters that are intertwined with the present to let us know what happened in Keely's past. And even though I did figure out what or who was threatening these kids, I still had a lot of fun trying to solve the mystery. I still had a lot of fun reading it. It got very bloody and gory towards the end, which, like I said, I really enjoyed. So if you like isolated survival horror and you're looking for more YA books, I definitely recommend this one. Moving on to Nestlings by Nat Cassidy. And I don't even know how to start describing this book because it's wild. It's if you read Mary, which was his debut novel, you know that the author mixes a lot of different subgenres of horror, plus his stories are wicked, awkward, and for people with an acquired taste. We follow a married couple that is really struggling after welcoming their firstborn kid to the world. Anna, the wife, had a really traumatic birthing experience and she's still struggling with postpartum depression. On top of that, after giving birth, she found herself in a wheelchair. So this book offers wheelchair user representation. Do check out the trigger warnings for this book, especially I would say if you did have a very difficult labor or are still struggling with postpartum depression. This might be a book that you might want to put on hold for now. But even though it seemed that all of these tragic things were happening to the married couple, they also got lucky because they got the opportunity to rent a flat, like the flat of their dreams that they had been waiting to get for years. So they see these as a sign of a fresh new start for them as a family in order to recover from all of their trauma. When they move to the new apartment, things are different because obviously when they had planned to move to that apartment, Anna was not on a wheelchair yet, and they also didn't have the baby yet. And when they move there, it's kind of like they're happy about it, but there are some things that still cannot be fixed just by moving into a new beautiful apartment. And also after moving there, Anna starts to notice really weird things in the building and also some marks, almost like tiny bite marks on her baby's body. And it all kind of starts to get into a almost speculation of what's going on in this apartment building, what's going on with the neighbors, why are there bite marks on the baby, and it is where the mystery part starts. The majority of the book felt like a mystery horror thriller, but the horror truly starts towards the end, and that is when things take a crazy turn, and it's something you kind of expect from the name, from the cover. If you read Mary, you know there's going to be some sort of crazy twist. The book did end up going into a very interesting direction towards the end, and it offered great, terrifying visuals. Similar to Mary, this book really managed to immerse you into the story. It deals with loss and grief in different ways from Mary, but I feel like it's a common thread between the two books as well. Especially women that are dealing with something that has caused them some sort of trauma, grief, and loss. I think those are parallels that I have seen in his books. But this is also going to be perfect for people that love books that have building a community, neighbors that might be hiding a dark secret, and you have to figure out the mystery. So in a way, it gave me almost Lock Every Door vibes by Riley Sager. So this is a weird mix of subgenres of horror, but I really enjoyed it. Going back to YA, we have Catch Your Death by Ravenna Guran, and this was pitched as, you know, a modern take on Agatha Christie for YA readers, and that is exactly what you're going to get with this book. It was so good, and it was like reading Agatha Christie, but, you know, for younger generations now, and it was so much fun. The book is told from 3 different perspectives from 3 girls that found themselves in an isolated mansion in the middle of a snowstorm when a murder happened. Now they are being questioned by the police, and they are, you know, retelling the story from the very beginning, from the day that they arrived to the mansion. They all arrived there for different reasons, and then a snowstorm started, so they were unable to leave. The family that lives in the mansion had a very special dinner, and the matriarch died. She was poisoned, but we don't know who did it. So this is a classic whodunit locked room murder mystery. Only the family was in the room when the matriarch was poisoned, so we need to figure out who did it. It is a classic whodunit, and I love the setting because it was this big estate that belongs to the family, and nobody was able to leave or to enter the place anymore due to the snowstorm, so we have a very reduced amount of suspects. The way the story was told was so smart. I think the author did such a good job at introducing these 3 girls. As they were retelling the story, they were kind of going back to that night to say what they saw, what they heard, in order to help the police figure out who killed this woman. And the author divided the book also in 3 different sections, which was so much fun. Now I'm not gonna go into much detail on what happened because there's so many twists and turns, which is something else that I loved about the book. When you think you have things figured out, the next thing happen and you're like, what the hell? So there is a lot of element of surprise when it comes to the twists and turns. I don't think they are all very obvious, so it's going to be very surprising for a lot of people. We need to start thinking who could have done it, who had a motive, who had opportunity, who did it. And Ravenna does such a good job at placing suspicion in every single one of the characters. Like, when you start to think about it, anybody could have done it. They all in a way had a motive. They all in a way could have had opportunity, or someone could have helped them. So it is one of those books where you're really questioning who could it be. This one was a little bit longer than what I'm used to when it comes to YA books, but it was worth it every single page. It is a book that I could potentially see myself rereading because I think Ravenna did such a good job at placing the clues for the reveals, and I feel like if you read it again you're gonna find all of those things. So it was a lot of fun. If you're looking for a great whodunit murder mystery, look no further. Also, I think in many countries it's still cold weather, so pick it up because this is perfect for winter. Signed, Sealed, Dead by Cynthia Murphy. This is one of the first books that I read in 2024 and I absolutely loved it. There is no mystery in this channel that I love Cynthia Murphy's books. I love her writing. I love how she combines all the horror tropes and gives us some modern things in horror combined with some more old school stuff. Like, the way she does horror speaks to my soul. There is a lot of references to 80s and 90s horror, and I'm here for it. I do have a spoiler-free book review of this book, and I go a little bit more into detail on the themes, the writing style, the characters, and all of that, so you can check that out if you're interested. As I said, it is completely spoiler-free. So this book is about Paige. She moves with her family to the United States, and she has to adapt to a new life, a new school, a new culture, and she starts learning about the past of the town, and she finds out that in that town back in the 90s there were a series of murders. Some young females were killed in the span of just 1 week, and the killer was never caught. So it means this is a cold case. And Paige decides she's going to find out what happened. She also has no other choice because somebody is starting to kill teenage girls again. So she needs to put a stop to it before she's the next victim. Now, I love to see that kind of love that Paige had for true crime as someone that is also interested in it. And I love the mystery. You have to figure out if the killer is the same one that is returning, or if it's someone copying the modus operandi of that killer from back in the 90s. Cynthia Murphy has such a fast-paced, fun, entertaining way of writing. A lot of the chapters end with open questions or with full-on cliffhangers, so you are desperate to get to the next chapter. Her books for me are those type of books that you can just not put down, and I think she's very talented when it comes to that, to keep you like with that thrill of needing to find out what's gonna happen next. So pick this one up if you love YA mystery thrillers and you love true crime and serial killers. It's such a good book with a couple of really interesting reveals. And last but not least, let's talk about the very first book that I read in 2024, and that was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. Guys, I cannot believe it has taken me this long to read this book. Like, what was I thinking? And as I've mentioned before, it's really funny because when this book was published, I did get a copy for my Kindle, intending to try it out, and then I never did. And it's so sad that I had been missing out for such a long time and I never picked it up, but I'm glad that I did, and I'm glad that I decided to start 2024 with this book because it was the perfect choice. New favorite. This is a book about Peep. She lives in a small town where a murder was committed and somebody was found guilty. Now, she believes the person that was found guilty is actually innocent, and she is determined to prove that guy's innocence. So she uses the excuse of an assignment that she has to do for school to investigate this, and it's something that happened 5 years ago. So she goes back to everything that she can find, you know, interviews, press releases, she talks to family members, she even emails like police for records, and it is such a fun investigation book. It is a mixed media book as well, so you're going to also see the interviews that Peep has with the family members and people that knew the victim and the accused, and it's just so much fun. If you love books where there is an investigation, this is great. I love when there's investigations. I don't care if it's a detective investigating or teenagers. I just love a good murder investigation with interviews and going back and forth with the police and the interviews that the police had with the accused and the suspects, and perfect. This book also is one of those books that really involves you as a reader to try to figure out the mystery together with the main character, because you are being presented with all of the clues, the interviews, and all the information that Peep has. Everything is presented to you, so it's inviting you to participate in the investigation and try to figure out who is the murderer. Is it really the person that was accused of it, or did the police get the wrong guy? And that is kind of what you're trying to figure out throughout the whole book. And there is several twists and turns, and it's just fantastic. It's fantastic. Also, it has like this kind of vibe of small town secrets, you know, and not really knowing your neighbors. And I don't know, it was just delicious. Needless to say, I'm really excited to keep reading the series. There is 2 more books and there's a novella, so I'm really excited and I cannot wait for the TV show. Holly was involved in it and I think she helped with the casting and all of it, like she gave her opinion, and that is so important to me as a reader. When the author is involved in the project, they don't have to direct it, they don't have to make all the calls, but at least involve the original creator in order to just to please the readers, you know. Like I said, it doesn't have to be exactly like the book and not all the decisions need to be made by Holly or anything like that, but I feel like including the original creator of the story and the characters into this new project is always a good idea. So the fact that Holly was involved and they did ask for her opinion makes me really excited. And those were the 9 books that I managed to read in the month of January. I had such a good reading month, and not just because I managed to read many books, but also because they were all books that I really enjoyed. I don't remember ever having a month where every single book that I read was at least a 3.5. Like, what a good reading month. What a good way of starting 2024. So I hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you also had a great start in 2024. Let me know maybe what is the first book you decided to start the year with, or what has been your favorite book that you have read so far in 2024. Thank you guys as always so much for watching, and I hope to see you all as always in our next coffee time. Bye!